There's a lot of them who are influencers, but they're really infectious in our community because now they got gazillion million followers, and whatever they say kind of goes. But if one of us say who only got 800 followers, ain't nobody gonna listen to none of y'all. But those infectious influencers are really damaging our community. They have no credence into the ground level work, the mentality, the social wellness of our people, but yet they're out there spewing this garbage that people are eating it up because they're seeing either the money they made, the influence they got, the houses and cars, and they're saying this must be it. We're so indoctrinized into the capitalistic system of our society that whatever happens on social media we perceive as being real, so we chase that, and we have such aspirations, we collectively, not generally, there's so much aspirations for what they have. If we try and challenge that, we become the haters. We become the people that they cancel. Again, you know, shout out to my lovely wife, Jack. We be challenging these folk every week, and we get scores of emails, but we're speaking truth to power, and we're calling it out because we can't have these infectious people who are quote-unquote influencers trying to change the mindset of our youth.
Hey, welcome, everybody. Welcome. Facebook, YouTube, everybody watching, man. We got Jeff Jones in the house tonight. We got Chris Jr., we got Devin, we got myself. We're going to kick it off tonight, man. But first, always, above average black men. Empower, inspire, uplifting community. We're talking about the pandemic, man. Uncovered a lot of stuff for a lot of people. You know, I counsel, so I have couples who now, you know, instead of going to work and coming home, they home. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Yeah, you got you know, boyfriend, girlfriend who spend all this time together now. You know, because they're going out circle and they're starting to uncover things about each other that, you know, see, when you go home it's a different ballgame.
So personal.
And what we were just talking about was, you know, we have those parents who they always blame the teacher and not the kid. And they're like, yo, Mr. Parent, it is Little Johnny. Because I've been trapped in the house of Little Johnny since pandemic. When is school going to open? So we're going to talk about that and get into a lot of different things. But Jeff, man, tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Sure. You know, thanks again for having me on the show. I've been an avid listener and supporter of the show, so it's an honor to be on the show myself. You know, Jeff Jones, community organizer, radio show host of my own rights, and owner of GGA Consulting, which is a consulting agency that helps to build and empower communities throughout the tri-state area. Had an opportunity to do some work nationally as well, so I'm just excited again about the opportunity to be on the show to talk about this very important topic.
So let's talk more about what you do, man. So first question is, why do you do what you do?
I definitely want you to kind of dig into, again, like maybe your title and how you got to where you were. I know you and I kind of talked about this when we bumped into the store the other day. And it's something that, you know, I kind of briefly talked about my background and working with kids. I think what's important and gets missed sometimes when you talk about kids is that there's a home part of this aspect. Sometimes you kind of pin kids and say these kids are bad, they're not doing this, but they aren't getting certain things at home that attribute to those actions. And you know, sometimes their parents don't even know necessarily what they're doing or what they're not doing. So definitely, you know, kind of based off our conversation, wanted to get you in here tonight and kind of really dig into that, how you got there, and if you could just explain a little bit as to what your role is.
Yeah, sure. So if I could just give a backdrop of my experience who led me to this is that, you know, been doing this work for community building for like 20 plus years, but it's all based upon my background. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And through that transition, being even, you know, homeless for some small period of time, I realized throughout that transition that there was greater days ahead, right? And that's what birthed my organization, Greater Days Ahead. So from that transition from being homeless to being, you know, an alcoholic, to realizing that there was greater days ahead for me, I had a sense of empathy and sympathy for individuals who are traveling through transitional periods in their life. So that allowed for me to connect to my community when I got myself recovered and on the right path to being a stable individual again. I was able to speak to youth and understand again their challenges because I was once that, right? So for me, it's always building the understanding of that I'm no greater than anybody else. As the expression goes, only by the grace of God, there go I. So my compassion for understanding of the struggle was built in the fact that I too have a testimony in the struggle myself. So overcoming that allowed me to also begin to speak to youth, and then Greater Days Ahead morphed into GDA Consulting because I then began to connect with organizations such as United Way, Be Me Community, and My Brother's Keeper, and got a little, you know, national recognition through those organizations. You know, got a gold medal award from Barack Obama for great volunteer work. You know, United Way fellow, gold badge for that. So not bragging, but just showing that.
No,
you know,
like that's awesome. Like that's what you're here for. Like go ahead.
So you know, I had opportunities to get recognized for that level of community outreach and work. And I began just building my social capital and individuals who understood what it means to do grassroots work. that is my bane and my passion, grassroots organizing. Now, of course, I know how to do upper-level management organizing as well, because I had an opportunity to get certified at the University of Pennsylvania in organization strategic design. So I'm skilled in that level, but I really am passionate about grassroots level work, because those are the people, such as all of us here, who are doing the work, who are making a difference. Me and my wife, we host the show, Community Voice PHL Talk Show, and we get into it about individuals and organizations that are just doing some bamboozling and fudge duckery that's going on.
I like that fudge duckery.
So you know, because we understand that it's individuals who want to ground and making a difference. And for me, when I see families and I see youth in particular who are not getting the resources and services that they need, it really frustrates me, because I know throughout my transition, if there weren't people who were giving me those opportunities, I would not be here today. I would still be someone maybe wandering, maybe still, you know, doing some things that I should not have. But I know the benefits of having individuals who are sincere about helping those in need. And so when I see some of these individuals and organizations who are not doing it, again, me and my wife, we call them out every week as much as we can. So my passion is behind that, and that's kind of like my testimony. And you know, the strength of my work is the experience that I had. And, you know, that gives me the remembrance of, hey, you got to remember that was you once, you know. And then not in the same instance, but in the same essence, that was me once. So I'm trying to pull people from that place to give them the hope, because it's always greater days ahead, no matter what your struggle is.
I think that is important in your story, like the relatability, because a lot of times, I mean, I said this maybe a couple weeks ago, people see a finished product and they make assumptions, you know, based off of maybe how you carry yourself and what you look like. But when you start to share those stories and you humanize yourself and you can connect, and it makes it easier to kind of, you know, be able to show them, like you said, greater days ahead.
What do you think they see a finished product? Most of us are still, we're still more, we're still growing. And I'm glad you said it, because I have this conversation with people all the time, man. That's the difference between pursuing excellence and mediocrity. Mediocrity, you think you've arrived. You know, you get a little bit of success, man. Now, you know, you think you've arrived, and there's so much more to do. There's so much more to conquer. You know, and I love the name Great Days Ahead, and I think, you know, I'm a little disappointed because you didn't tell that story before. No, I say that because that's what, well, you know me, because you know me, I'm always trying to put people who look like my kids before their kids. And the reason why I said it, because especially now with all of the opiate epidemic and all the stuff going on, you know, a lot of these kids don't see they can get out their environment. You know, so when they hear that story, it's like, yo, you know, me too. You know, me too. You know, and the difference is they don't have to get, you know.
And one part about that, Chris, is that I shared that story with all the youth last week when we were working together. I shared that story with them kids, and they were looking at me like, really? You?
Because inner city kids, you know, they see the pitfalls. They don't meet many people who overcome the pitfalls.
So, my next question would be like, where do you see yourself taking this program, you know, down the road within, like, you know, the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because again, this is everything that I'm doing now, or I should say everything that we're doing, because me and my wife are working collaboratively on this, is to help build stable and caring communities all across the nation. We're using our show, Community Voice, as a voice to get resources and information out to people. So to answer your question, where I see this at, say 5 years from now, we're making connections out in Oakland, so we're hoping to stretch that far west. And just to build strong, caring communities with resources, educational, informational, political, and socially, resources in every major city across the nation, through, you know, lenses and programs, platforms such as this and others that we partner with. So that's kind of our vision and our goal, because none of us are as smart as all of us. And one thing that I always say is that we're not outnumbered. Often we're out-organized, and if we can get to a space of being more organized, we can strategically make power movements in certain areas. So that's where I see ourselves in 5 years from now.
And what I like about it is you empower the next generation. I mean, too many times we get these grandiose ideas and visions, and we leave folk behind. You know, and then when we die, it dies. The movement dies, the cause dies, the dream dies, because we didn't empower anybody to come behind us. And I think that's why I'm so proudly glad to hear you say that, because a lot of times I got an idea, you know, I'm gonna run this idea, but nobody else comes along in the journey. So now I get 75, 80 years old, I can no longer do it, and it dies.
And that's one of the things. Shout out to my lovely wife, Jacqueline Jordan. Want to give a shout out to that.
If I knew, you know, I would have invited you. I'm sorry, because I was on your show, so I wasn't that clear.
You was on that show?
That was the show you was making fun of me about. Y'all were listening, making fun of me because they would tear me up because I gave my phone up. He gave his phone up. I actually joined it. You know, I actually joined the station and everything.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
that's what's up. That's what's up. Cool. So, what we are doing, what me and Jack were doing, making sure we can have legacy building information along the way, because that's again one of the things that we do when we're creating these programs. And Jacqueline has her own entity called Kinetic Soul Media, which is the theater and creative arts space. And so we're really out there making sure we can build and develop communities in various different ways, but legacy building work, so that, it's one thing, like you say, when we're no longer on this side of the Jordan, who's going to be able to maintain the mantle at that point? So we're making sure we're having young girls doing that, young boys and everyone else. So we're about legacy building in that capacity, creating that voice that's sustainable and achievable for the future of our community. So because it's at the end of the day, Chris, Deb and Chris, it's not about us, you know what I mean? It's really not about us. I mean, They could look at me and say, oh, you achieved all this, or look at you all and say, oh, but at the end of the day, it's about what we left behind. It's like the expression that's in the movie Black Panther, you look at the village, and if you don't love the children, they'll burn it down just to feel their warmth, right? And right now, some of our kids got matches in their hands.
You saw had a front row seat.
Yeah.
And that was kind of bringing it back to, like you said, the struggle is real right now.
Yeah,
and you mentioned that all of these resources that, you like to kind of bring together. I wanted to kind of dig more into some of those resources, like what resources are available that you generally work with that you can provide to kind of the community out here?
Yeah, most of the resources that I have are individuals such as Ruben Jones, who has a program, Frontline Dads, who provides help and information to help dads not just transition from incarceration, but dads who are just needing help with resources how to raise their child if they're a single dad, or just assistance to raise their child if they have a family. So organizations like that, I have Connie Greer from the Respect Alliance, who does educational work to make sure that students are up to par educationally, not just at average passing statistical standardized tests, but achieving their career goals academically. I have a good friend, Sharif El-Mekki, who many of you may know, who has a Black Male Educators Convening.
My neighbor.
Yeah, so there you go. So, can provide resources on how to get educators in the right space who look like us, who are teaching children who look like us, so there's a cultural relativism there. Then I have a good friend, Mike James from Budget Me, giving financial literacy and information. So, we have a wealth of information that is out there. Then we even have on the athletic side, my friend Eric Worley. I don't know if you know Eric Worley, but Philadelphia Triple Threat, providing, basketball training and resource educational environment. And then we have political connections such as my good friend Isaiah Thomas and Kendra Brooks.
You know Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, Sharif El-Mekki. I mean, not Sharif El-Mekki, Sharif Street. So we have political connections in that space. So we're trying to again bring it in every aspect, whether socially, politically, educationally, academically, so that there's resources along the way as well that we can connect people to directly or indirectly, because it's like 6 degrees of separation. So we want to make sure we bridge that gap.
And that's important, because I was having a conversation with a prospective friend today, and we were talking about you had a brief conversation earlier off camera about the drug money, everything that's coming down, and the people who are doing the work.
All right.
And they only half doing the work, because you're walking into this classroom or this organization, you're telling these kids about the evils of drugs, but you're not telling them how to get out. You're not giving them alternative.
Yeah.
You're not giving them a skill other than to sell drugs.
Right.
And so is that you lecturing them on don't do this,
right.
but then you leave them right there. And that seems to be, and I say this all the time, that seems to be the hole in so many of these programs, because you come in and you say, don't do drugs, but, how can I get out my community? What's my alternative to selling drugs? How can I, because, and I'll say this real quick, when I was doing some work for RISE, the mayor's office, and I would sit down and talk to those guys, and man, those cats were making $3-4 grand a week.
Yeah.
Then they come out of jail, they make a minimum wage, man. And some pimply faced boy is telling them what to do, and I'm not being sarcastic, but for a dude who's been paying bills, and that's hard to digest.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's hard to digest, man. And and then the people depending on you telling you go back and sell, because you've been paying car payments, you've been paying rent, you've been paying bills. We do this, and that's what kids see. Kids see the guy who screwed up and now he's trying to do the right thing, and he's struggling.
Yeah. But the thing with that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dad.
I was just curious to know, like, are there any other, resources or programs that you would like to, bring forth to the front fold, or anything like that?
Incorporate with what you're doing right now.
We got a guest. Justin's at the door, man.
Yeah. I can always, off the top of the head, Deb, that's a great question, right? But off the top of the head, I don't know any bad to say yes, we'd like to bring them on board, but we're always using the show as a vehicle and a voice to say, hey, if you're out there doing this grassroots groundwork, we are eager and welcome to have you aboard. So let me let the other guests.
You ain't shy, man. Don't even start that. He was still over there like he's shy.
He didn't want to show that he came in big. He was trying to stay on
camera.
camera.
At the same time, bro. I'm doing good, man.
I was trying to figure who's out there. What's that? Bill collector on me?
Get on in.
Cut
So
you
yeah, so Dev, it's organizations who we realize are doing the work and want to be part of it and understand it with a true level of authenticity because, like Chris was saying, there's individuals and organizations who are doing work, but it's just really key towards the grant KPIs, right? And that's fine if you want to sustain a grant, but the catch-22 is that you will do the work to sustain a grant, but you'll lose the people in doing it because you won't make an impact. Now, the balance is that where do you find those people who's making an impact? That's those individuals who got their nails dirty, not the well-manicured hands, right? Grassroots work, right? So those are the ones who we're looking for as far as community voice to sustain us with the things that we're doing. We partner with them reciprocally to support them as well, because there's never been a guest on our show, and my wife Jackie can attest to this, who we have not reciprocated with and supported them in some kind of way, because we want it to be that Ubuntu, Kujichagulia, Susu type of aspect of community building. So any organization that's willing to partner with us, we're willing to open up and do that. But it's got to be with authenticity. We're not here to check off a box on your grant so that you can get another grant and leave the community decimated. We've seen that happen too many times. There's too many organizations in the tri-state area that do that, not to mention nationally. So.
But I think this goes back to our topic. The struggle is real, man.
Yeah.
There's folk who are struggling with depression. Poverty is really taking a grip on a lot of people, man. A lot of communities.
It is.
Politicians are not looking out for them.
Yeah.
People who they thought were going to look out for them. Divorce. And divorce is a big thing now because folk are they trapped in a house for a long period of time. Man, it's like, it's like one of them, I used to tell my wife, I'm gonna sue you for false advertising. This ain't what I bought. I can say that now. This ain't what I'm paid for.
But like you said,
Don't be saying it at home. Just like, I'll use that.
I know better.
That's part of how we have to realize how are we going to navigate through this pandemic, right?
Yes.
Of course, the whole health aspect is, wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, all yada, yada, yada. And you do all that, but yet and still, how do you navigate through the emotional, mental strain and trauma that's been put on ourselves, right? We have to first own that. Me and my wife, Jack, we talk about that quite a bit. Like, how do we make sure that, we don't lose each other in the midst of the challenge of trying to be virtual and trying to work from home and all that. So we've created a comfortable outlets for ourselves because, too much of me can be dangerous for Jackie. She might be like, look, I don't need this much of you. I love all of you, but I don't need this much of you today.
People laugh. The wisest thing I did was my wife's office is the top floor in the back and my office in the basement in the front.
Yeah,
the wisest thing.
My office is also in the basement.
Yeah, so it's sort of the same thing with me. I'm trying to let you get into it.
No,
he gonna represent. He walked in right on time because I think this sounds corny, but people are not laughing enough now. Life is so daunting and so tiresome for so many people, man, and they don't have much to laugh about. You saw it, some of the kids, man. You talk to kids and they say, "Well, I'm in therapy," and I'm saying to myself, "Yeah, it ain't working." You need to do, because they're so intense at a young age, man. They so bombarded with the pressures of life already, man.
I mean, they carry an adult issues
they
and problems, and I think
but they don't laugh. I think that's part of it, though. You gotta laugh sometimes.
Yeah, true. But again,
go ahead,
I was gonna say the world has changed, man. Like when you go online, you can be introduced to a lot of different things. Some of that stuff don't make you laugh. Like I get caught up sometimes, like just needing to take a break, like because you're just seeing traumatic things after traumatic things, or some of it just silly or stupid until it's killing brain cells.
And this is what I tell people: you gotta turn that nonsense off, man. You cannot sit there and watch all these news shows, doom and despair, people dying, getting killed, and you flip it to the political stage, and don't think you're not gonna be depressed at the end of the day. And most of it is not real anyway. Everybody's making it just get you look at it. You got to turn it off.
But tied into what you said, just kind of with this whole, the struggle is real. People are home.
Real.
That's a whole new thing that they have to deal with now. Is just their devices and monitoring the time and what your kids are taking in, and so it's just.
All that's been accelerated because we've never got to a space where we had to actually monitor our social media to the level we're doing now, right? And the challenge came with because I do work with Mastery Charter School, right? And the challenge came for the students and the parents was that it's like you don't want them on the computer, but they got to use the computer to get to school.
Yes.
So you can't tell them, so how do you balance that? I'm saying
it's funny. Let me chime in too because I remember the difference between the generations. Like my father raised me to always have a watch on me, no matter what the situation. You gotta have a watch. And then cell phones came out. I was like, Dad, there's a clock right on his phone. And he I don't care. you need to have a watch on. I was like, that don't make no sense though. You understand that? And we was kind of like going back and forth. But of course, I did what he told me to do because I want to get whooped. But as time went along, he now he don't need a watch. I mean, he still wears a watch. And some watches don't even work. I know you got the iPhone. I know that's
I got all kind of watches, man.
But I'm just speaking to the difference in the time and the times now. Like,
But
so much has changed with these devices.
Culturally, yeah.
But here's the humor.
Devices.
I sit down with a parent. The parent says, "Well, I don't want my kid attending the virtual after school program, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
Well, what does he do?
Yeah.
He plays video games, and I'm looking at it like, really? So you would rather have him play, all these murderous video games than something constructive. So we do kind of pick and choose when it comes to what we think is viable. But I also want to get back to. We talking about the struggle is real. How do we get people to recognize it's real? Because we talked about off camera. Black folk don't go to therapy.
Right.
It's a bad word when you say therapy, you say counseling. They just don't. I mean, I know some folk who they know they screwed up, but they're not going to go to therapy.
Yeah.
And they're not, and they won't even tell their boy. That's my man. It's just this pride thing. So and it's a collective thing, man. How do we get people to start? Because if you don't admit it, you can't do it.
The elders gotta go first. That's what helped me.
I actually want to back up on that. I actually want to back up on that real quick. I know you mentioned therapy and everything. Why do you think that is that, it has that negative, connotation, especially in our community?
Because I can tell you, when I was growing up, therapy meant you was crazy.
They thought you were crazy.
You may never heard this term, but they put you on a short bus.
Yeah.
That too.
That little small
You
yellow
were
school
short
bus.
bus
You ain't getting, like me, I'm walking before I
Short
get on
bus
that
was a
school.
different type of crazy. Like therapy's like I'm gonna go to school. Crazy.
No, but it's
became the same.
But it's that negative.
They all the same bus.
But it's that negative, stigma that came with it, and you tease people, like, if somebody went to the counselor in school, they got teased.
Yeah.
If folk found out you were seeing the counselor on a regular basis, you got teased.
Yeah.
Heck, if you went to speech therapist, I don't care how bad you talked, they found out you was going to speech therapist.
Yeah.
So it's just, and it just carried on. And what happens is stuff like that becomes generational.
Right.
All of a sudden the value disappears because everybody's focusing on the teasing part. I don't want to be teased.
Yeah.
I mean, not even that part too. I feel like there is kind of a stigma of almost like some weakness type thing. Like, you need to go talk to somebody. Like, I can't believe, like, toughen up. Just hold on to that, take that in.
Put
Like,
the big boy pants.
yeah, pretty much. Like, so that is another big thing. I feel like, as Black people, we kind of already expect things to be hard sometimes, and it's just like keep moving forward. So I think that's almost sometimes a reason why it's like, I'm not gonna go complain or talk to somebody or feel like I'm complaining. And it does, I mean, not to me, I don't feel like that, but that stigma is out there that you kind of, you feel weak for that.
But you'd be surprised how many people went through something similar who never said a word until you say it. And then all of a sudden, oh man, Justin, that same thing happened to me. There are so many people who we wear masks.
Yeah.
People wear masks every day. It's Halloween every day because I put this mask. We put this mask on, and I'm, even in church. How you doing? Blessed by the best. Everything is falling apart. Yes, you do. Everything is falling apart. The home, the dog done bit the cat done bit the bird. You got holes in your shoes. Your spare got a hole in it.
Right.
But you just what we say, and we're like that. Even when or the other side of the coin is, folk don't really mean it when they ask you how you doing because they do it at a fast pace. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? They still moving. They don't even, And when you start talking, it's like, man, you got me.
What's funny too? So when I first got into sales, right, and I had to speak to a high volume of people. So my pitch was like, hey, this is Justin from whatever company, calling because of this. How you doing today? And my manager was like, don't ask them how they doing today. I was like, well, why not? And she was like, because if they're doing bad, then you're going to have to listen to that. I was like, yeah, but if they're doing bad, shouldn't I know that, address it, and then we get to business? Like, but she didn't see it that way.
Right.
But that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And that's why I sold accounts that they couldn't sell in there.
But he talked about it. You made it personal.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing we were talking about. People who get these grants of service, people, especially people who look like us. It's just a program to them. So I don't, all I got to do. I say this all the time when I do my trainings. If you talk to a room with 50 people, and you get through your curriculum, and 49 don't have a clue what you talked about, you're not successful. You think you're successful because you finished. I was in San Antonio at a workshop, and dude was talking about how he went through all these curriculums he was doing. So I'm like, wait a minute, I raised man, I work with the same population. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because they read at different levels, you know, some of them, they don't pay, this is before ADD was a thing, they only pay attention, man, you know, they want to fight and everything, so, yeah, but we can, no, but who did you reach?
Yeah.
You know, who actually got what you received, and that's the problem. See, you're smart, you figured it out. If I can build a relationship, you saw me with some of the kids at the camp.
Yeah.
People buy you, they don't buy this.
Yeah, exactly. It's that relationship value that always comes back. And I'm glad you pointed that out because sometimes we don't recognize the humanity in others. That's one of the things that I often do all the time. A good friend of mine is Dr. Truman Hudson up in Detroit. He's a social impact strategist, and I learned a lot from him. And one of the things he taught me was to connect with people, right? And ever since I've been working with Dr. Truman, it's been many years now, and he always made me aware to just talk to people. So now when I go to like shopping stores or whatever, I say, hey, how you doing? How's your day going? Because I want to connect and humanize that. And if I'm out for a run and I'm jogging, always look at people and wave because I want to connect to that humanizing part. But you'll find, just like you said, that your manager, people don't realize the importance of that. Like, why you want somebody like, I asked him, how you doing? It's like, well, I'm doing bad. I can't complain. Even if I did, nobody would listen. I said, I would listen, but I probably can't help it. I would at least listen. And they don't realize the fact that, damn, somebody does care, right? Take the time to do that. And my brother, Dr. James Jones, he has a book called I'm All Right. And the book talks about how to overcome generational trauma and things of that nature. But he named it I'm All Right because that's a reflex response.
Yeah, man.
If somebody's coming up to you, how you doing, Chris? I'm all right. But really, you're not. You're burdened with so much, just like it was just part of this conversation. We see you're burdened with so much, but you don't want to really let that out. You want to wear that mask. I'm all right. Let it keep going. And people will accept that, right? And that's fine because you can't challenge anybody if they say they are right. But the truth is generational trauma that's been built into us. And part of that stigmatization is because going back to, if you want to go back to slavery, Willie Lynch and all that, there's trauma with the black man. You can't admit that you're hurt because you have to be the protector and provider of your home. So if you say you got to go to trauma, then that's less of being a man. Now to the black woman, she's never really respected and valued, as Malcolm X says, so she can't admit to being needing help because then she's still seen as weak and vulnerable. So now as a black cultural society, when you talk therapy, it's hard for us to step into it because the black man thinks I'm going to be less than, and the black woman thinks she's going to be vulnerable. So we have to really look at how do we, as we're talking about, how do we step into that space? It's all about openness and communication and sincerity and recognizing humanity of others so that we can say, hey, Chris, how you doing? Whenever I talk to your pops and he asks me how I'm doing, we always tell you, man, I'm not having a good day. It's just not a good day. Sometimes we text each other, I ain't doing good. And that's fine, right? Because at least he know when I'm talking to him and we're talking to each other, we're real about it, right? And we have to just have those more authentic and original conversations so people can know that, hey, it's okay to not have a good day.
Well, coming soon, we're going to have a round table. And what the round table is, I'm going to get a bunch of brothers together. We're going to sit around the table. And we have various topics you can talk about, and this is going to be one of them. We got to adjust today because we got to laugh.
I got pain too. Tell that.
I got a round table. I'm going to break
You can bring your feelings. Don't bring your feelings. When we going to laugh, you're going to look at you.
Nah, but it's real because, you know, and I go back as generational. You know, there's guys I've known for years, you know, and I know they're doing bad because when you know somebody from back in the hood, people tell you. Whenever you, oh man, so-and-so's not, you know, and you see him, oh man, you know, I'm on fire. What? I don't say it, but I'm saying to myself like, yo, I know because, you know, and we forget how small the community was growing up in the hood, man. That just because you move out, folks still know what's going on. You know, and, you know, we got folk dying of prostate cancer because they won't say anything, and you know, we got folk diabetes, you know, heart attacks, or marriages just breaking up when they could be saved because I'm not going to tell anybody because I'm this macho person.
And all that trauma, it impacts you physically as well. You know, of course, it's the mental aspect, but like you're saying, look at some of the brothers, like all of us right now, in great physical condition because we're allowing ourselves to be open and mental and wellness in that space. But you look at some brothers and even some sisters who are not allowing themselves to be whole health mentally. You look at them, it eats you up, it denigrates your body.
But it goes back to, and I'm going to put this at men because Justin had an excellent point with his dad, because my dad was the same way. But we got to break the cycle. We got to pass that stuff on, man. You know, I remember, look, man, I broke my thumb, you know, and the bone was kind of sticking on the side. My dad was like, don't cry. Don't cry. You know, I'm thinking about to die here, bones sticking out and everything. But that was just, you know, how he was. You know, he's a big dude. He was just that kind of person, you know. And I think that's the thing that we've passed out from generation to generation. That is a weakness if you show your emotions. You know,
I want to just try a story that makes sense with it's crazy too. I've been hanging out with this this new group of people. They cool people. It's actually Chris actually got one of these brothers in to play college basketball. So because of Chris' connection, we made a connection, and these brothers like. They not scared to talk about mental health. It's like it's crazy. It's not like you run into somebody like that every day, but we did. He's happy to be from West Philly. He's talking about how him and his friends when he was younger, he used to be bad getting into stuff. They was just in a bad environment. And one of the boys got shot a couple times. Came in the house, in his foot too. He came in the house in pain, like writhing in pain. Like, his homie was like, look at him, he crying. Like,
that's crazy.
And that's the extent of it. Like, your homie got shot, and you making fun of him. Yeah. Because that's the thing. He look at him. He over there drawing. Look at him. Tissue. Just give him a tampon. Like, what? He's about to die. He's bleeding out. But that's how we really look at it. But and the second point is, sometimes people don't tell others what they're going through because of the responses.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was thinking about.
The responses are
some
so
people
like,
aren't necessarily that genuine when you tell them how you doing, they're like, ooh, like that's tea. Like they taking it to somebody else or they judging. Yeah. So it's just you kind of almost gotta be mindful of that sometimes too. Who you talking to.
Or not even the tea. Somebody just saying something that's just not helpful
or hating. It's just like different. It's a whole bunch of
we
different
talked
things,
about it a couple of weeks
scenarios.
ago. You gotta have like I said, I do this workshop and it's called Life is a 12-round bout. And I always talk about round 2. Round 1, you get out there, everybody's dancing and everything. Round 2 is when you start to get hit. And the question is, who's in your corner? Because you go back to your corner and you, man, Justin, he rocked you, man. I don't know how you stood up and you took that. Or the guy's gonna be like, yo, Justin, this is what we gotta do. And we got the wrong folk in our corner, but you gotta know how to identify it. And that's part of our struggle I was gonna talk about later, but since we get in there, who you surrounding yourself with, man. Who's in your corner? Because that can help you or that can hurt you. If you got folk that's shaming you because you need help, then you're not going to say anything. And you kind of post office somewhere, you do something crazy, and oh man, I knew he was going to do it. Or you got folks that's going to allow you to be yourself. I think most of us don't have those people around.
Or it's some people that's really, really high functioning. I'll take Anthony Bourdain. Remember him? Person everything you could ever want out. Career. But I'm sure every time he tried to talk about something, it was like, Anthony Bourdain, what you complain about? What you complain about, bro? But he never got the help that he needed to not make that fatal decision.
Because that's why you got who you surround yourself with. You got to surround yourself with somebody that's going to allow you to be who you are. That's not going to sit there and be who I think you should be. That's one thing I told you all the time, man. Folk will always try to define you. But you got to know who you are and be strong enough in who you are to know when I need to talk to Jeff about this. Or I got friends who I don't see regularly. Tommy, I have known Tommy since first grade. We've been best friends, man. When we talk. But I know if I got an issue, I can call him up. If you got an issue, you can call me up. I got people like that. You got to have folk. I don't see Jeff on a regular basis. But Jeff, I got this program and you to come in. You got to surround yourself with folk like that. And a lot of times we don't. We get people around us who like us for what we can do for them, or because how we make them feel. But that's all temporary. You the person that's going to be there when you don't have jokes anymore, man. You really got to sit down and you got to go through stuff. I know when I'm a cancer survivor. Everybody knows when I got prostate cancer. And I joke about it now, but let me tell you, some black folk are just dumb. The stuff they say to you, man. We didn't tell a lot of people, so my wife decided, long story short, it was like, okay, guys, you need to share it because you can help some people. Man, I remember somebody telling me, man, my boy had prostate cancer. They cut him open, they just closed him back up. How you know, fool? You weren't even in there. I get how you know that, oh man, you're never gonna be right. This stuff people supposed to be, supposed to be helping. Just walk was quick.
That's like they
really don't know. I ruptured my Achilles, right? And one of my friends, the same week that I posted, he put this post on my wall, somebody breaking his ankles. Like, this supposed to make me feel better? Why do I want to see this? And I didn't know until a couple weeks later. He was like, yeah, he's a comedian too. I didn't know if you think that was, I was like, well, I didn't, but.
I get it now.
You don't know what, people got funny ways of trying to cheer you up.
But that's why you gotta know though you gotta know who you can talk to. You can talk to about what. It's like and I go on my 2-minute Steve Harvey rant. Yo, dude is writing about. He's a comedian and he's giving people relationship advice, and he hasn't had a successful relationship, but he sells books. So what he has.
I'm gonna write me a bunch of books. I promise.
But he has charisma. He has charisma, and people are attracted to the star power.
But
That's just reality, bro.
You know, I don't want to get off topic on that, but that's part and parcel of the problem, though.
And I agree. That's what I'm saying. That's the issue. That's
You
the
have
issue.
individuals like
Yeah.
that, and there's a lot of them who are influencers, but
Yep.
they're really infectious in our community.
Yeah.
Because now they got gazillion million followers,
Yep.
and whatever they say kind of goes. But if one of us
Yeah.
say who only got 800 followers, ain't nobody gonna listen to none of y'all. But those infectious influencers are really damaging our community.
Yeah.
They have no credence into the ground level work, the mentality, the social wellness of our people, but yet they're out there spewing this garbage that people are eating it up because they're seeing either the money they made, the influence they got, the houses and cars,
Yeah.
and they're saying this must be it.
Yeah.
We're so indoctrinized into the capitalistic system of our society that whatever happens on social media we perceive as being real, so we chase that, and we have such aspirations, we collectively, not generally, there's so much aspirations for what they have. If we try and challenge that, we become the haters. We
Yeah.
become the people that they cancel. Again, you know, shout out to my lovely wife, Jack. We be challenging these folk every week, and we get scores of emails, but we're speaking truth to power, and we're calling it out because
Yeah.
we can't have these infectious people who are quote-unquote influencers trying to change the mindset of our youth because, you know, we have to develop that tribe, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about that is that the circle of friends that we have, if your circle of friends aren't moving you towards being a better person, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. And they're just caging you in, right? They're not allowing you to be who you need to be. And of course we have to do that in a safe way, right? But if we know these individuals who are with us going to support us, then we have to use that as our leverage point to help develop our wellness in that space as well.
I liken it to successful athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget when I went to college. You know, and my book, my shameless plug for my book, Can You Ball? I gotta get that plug, man. But but the book can't argue to the stone. You want to talk about the stone? No, I got stories. No, I got stories. Don't get me started. But no, I never forget. We're playing the first game of the season, man. I played baseball and basketball. I had a partial scholarship. For baseball, I had scholarship baseball, and I was trying to get some extra money. Because you couldn't work back then. They
Different now.
You still don't work to get paid.
Making that
You know,
money.
Just get paid.
but I never forget, and all these guys on 4 rocks, look around the huddle, man, we be down 1 point, like 10 seconds to go in the game, and the coach is like, gee, drawing up play. So, dude, look in the stands. Man, there's a lot of people in here. Yeah, man, man, we can't lose this game. Everybody, all the rest of the team, like, yo, yeah. I'm like, yo, and coach trying to draw up a play for him. So first of all, like, dude, you ain't even paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what's gonna happen when the ball kicks. So the coach is like, well, who wants the ball? I'm like, yo, give me the ball. And I was a freshman. And after the game, he was like, I missed the shot. I tell everybody when they would get to the book. But after the game, he was like, well, why did you do it? I grew up in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
I played on playgrounds, man. They threw stuff at you if you. They wasn't throwing it at me there.
Mm-hmm.
I played down, some of the rec centers in the hood, man, where they could stick their foot out and trip you on the sideline. You got to run down with 1 arm. You played in some of the same places, so it was different. Just like you guys. You guys played in those crowds in high school. So when you got to college, I remember y'all went down to play. What was it? Play Bowie.
Yeah.
And half the team was petrified. They looking at, shout out to Boyd. It's not a bad thing. But I told my wife I knew I was in trouble when he had the movie rope around around the course, around the mile on the court. She said, "What you mean?" I said, "Yo, when they got that rope, that means it's fast." But I remember the faces on the rest of the team. And I remember talking to the coach after the game, and they played there before. They played in bigger crowds than that, man. They played in playground, and this is my thing. That's what's wrong with Ben Simmons. He's an AAU kid. He hasn't played in the hood where they shot on the street. Y'all played in gyms where people didn't like y'all. And I think it's the same thing in life. You don't go through these things, and then we people get in these positions and they don't know how to respond. But there's unless you're passing it on, there's no way. Like when they wanted to play ball, they tell you, I took them down North Philly. Y'all want to play basketball? What did y'all go? 27 Clearfield.
27 Clearfield.
Yeah, y'all want to go? Y'all can go where I play.
No wonder y'all so good.
Because I came out here and they picking people up. Yo, what are you doing, man?
I still do that.
Yeah, they picking people up. No, that's after the game. I have friends. We knock the crap out of each other. When the game is over here, but during the game, I'm stepping over you. I'm like, hey, But I think that's how we kind of moved to a society that we got a group of folk who just underprepared or not prepared because we have the wrong people running programs in our communities.
And that's part of what happens, though, Chris. Now our society is codified into this space of comfort, right? So now the pandemic comes, and that codification can't really help you because now
Jeff gonna make me go to my next vocabulary.
I mean-
I'm trying to keep this simple. He just keep, he throwing all these words out like,
That means we
I'm like, all right. I'm trying to keep it simple for the audience, but I'm like, he just throwing these words.
Dumb it down, boy.
What's that show that's going on Emancipation Proclamation?
Nah, but you guys, who are these frauds that's poisoning the community? We gotta talk about
It's
it.
a lot of them out
Because
there.
like Steve Harvey, because we started off Steve Harvey, right?
Well, let me give you my disclaimer. When I had my first show called Accentuate the Positive, I used to get during the show and after the show, I got so many frustrated text messages, emails because I would say stuff like that that people weren't, crazy with. Like I remember talking about TD Jakes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we got to like
So,
because
all right. Well,
because
I don't
It's like you want to talk about who you want around you. That
because
doesn't matter.
I was gonna say about Steve Harvey, like I've heard some of his messages. I haven't read the How to Be. Think like I don't need to read it. Like I don't need that. But I know he does push a lot of positive messages too.
Sure.
So, but obviously, when you talk about relationships, is a man with several failed relationships the one to go to? I'm not saying that he's not. He could. I'm just saying,
My
like,
thing about Steve is
because I think about the rap industry as, and I am. You talking about a fan like Jada Kiss, the Locks, the Versus. Like I was on that. I ain't watching it, but that's what I grew up on. But that also, I would be aloof if I didn't realize what that did to my mind and the people who listen to it mind.
But my thing with Steve Harvey is he postures himself as an individual who speaks for all men, and you don't. He puts himself in a position like he knows what every man is, and the problem with it is, women believe that.
But as a speaker,
So
can't you see the confidence that you need to have? Like I am the man. Like,
Yeah, but I'm not going to say I
Yeah.
speak for all men. I'm not going to get up there and say every man does this. This is what you need to know about men, because it's not true. It's not accurate.
He has a target audience. He's speaking
I'm
to
not denying
women.
it.
It's not necessarily for men.
But he's
You know what I mean?
poisoning relationships. Sure. This woman is listening to that thinking every man in this room is the same.
And I think kind of what you said about having appropriate people around you. We talked about social media. It's also kind of what you're taking in. Like, granted, he's putting out all these positive messages. It isn't necessarily the truth or something that's going to help these women in this case is like be better or find what it is that they're necessarily looking for. So I do kind of, I just wanted to kind of bring that back.
And I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying that when you're in a position like that, there's responsibility that comes with it, and you have to be careful how you forward your messages. You can't get up there and say, to a woman that this is what every man thinks, because you don't know what every man thinks. Every man thinks totally different. Those of us who are married, we love our wives, but there's some differences in how we do it. So therefore, I couldn't get up there and say, well, my way is the right way, and everybody else is doing it wrong. And I think that's what we
But
get.
what if saying in one way got you an extra $100 million? In the other
See, I disagree. I think if you did it the right way, you can still get $100 million.
You think so?
Because of who he is. Because of who he is. No, I mean because of who he is. I think because of who he is. If you have the name and the clout, you can. I look at AI since I love the basketball analogies. People say the same thing about him. Because he came in a time where everybody was wearing suits and nobody was defying the NBA and everybody was the fresh haircuts and I remember when he first started, they were calling him a thug and everything, and he just let me be me. Look what happened. He changed the code. You don't see a dude without a tattoo now. So sometimes, if you do it the right way and stick to it and you're successful, that's all people look at. And he has a name. When you have a name and a brand, that's what people look at. And I don't think you have to kowtow, like Steve Harvey, he took a big hit when he did the Trump thing, because he thought he was bringing me life. He went and visited Trump, and he's speaking for all black people. You don't speak for all black people.
So if you could choose your boys to be like one player, would you have to be like Grant Hill or Allen Iverson?
I gotta say, talent-wise, see, I like Grant Hill. I like Grant Hill.
I'm talking about everything they embody. They both got extraordinary talent, right?
But who you gonna remember 20 years? Most kids,
for sure.
Most kids today won't even know who Grant who. They don't know Grant Hill was a great player.
And adding to that, though, that's a great
question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. But I think for those two, it's no loss in that. It's no laws.
I don't think it is. I think it's
So,
both being authentic.
Yeah, so you know, it would have been different if you said who would you want your kid to be, Russell Westbrook or Allen Iverson, something like that.
Or
With
Ron
with-
Artest.
Yeah, Ron Artest with someone where there's some difference. But with Grant Hill and AI, it's stylistic.
Yeah.
You know, like I would say, it doesn't matter, right? I have a son. I only have one. But if you say who you want your son to be, Allen Iverson or Grant Hill, it doesn't matter because you can accept the quote unquote elegance and grace of which Grant Hill had, and his career is really derailed by his injuries.
For sure.
Right.
Who
for
knows?
Sure.
He
Yeah.
might have been, you know, one of
He
the
was
top
the next
50 as
MJ.
well,
I think
right?
he was-
Because he was putting
He
in
was.
work.
Yeah.
Just check him out on YouTube. And so AI he had a lengthy career. He proved his worth throughout the length of his career. But again, I get your question. Just like, you know, which one would you choose? And for me, it's just like
But it's
those
differences
two.
because
It's
you look
differences,
at, and this
yeah.
goes back to what we're talking about that the struggle is real.
Mhm.
Because a lot of us, there's a lot of people who like AI face that.
Mhm.
You know, do I choose being me or do I sell out?
Mhm.
And sell is a strong word. Do I choose being me or do I choose being the company man? And there's a lot of people who face that issue, man. And
Yeah.
some people struggle under the weight of all that.
Mhm.
You know, I love Muhammad Ali, and I hear people. I don't know many people who could go through what he went through. You know, and people talk all this smack. You know, first of all, you give up. You know you're the baddest dude in the world,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
give it up in your prime for what you believe, regardless of what you want to say about it, for what you believe.
Mhm.
And you know he was getting death threats and all this stuff. Dude was out there still in the
Yeah,
middle
still
ring, floating like a
hard
butterfly. I
talking,
mean,
yeah.
he just had this, and I think people don't recognize that part about him. Like even I'm a Malcolm X fan. I know as a Christian, people get upset when I say that, but I don't know many folk who want to die for what they believe. And who are constantly seeking the truth. And I think that's the difference, man. When you pursue excellence and mediocrity, excellence means I'm going to defy the odds.
Yes.
You know, that means I'm going to do something like, you know, I'm sure when you said you wanted to be a comedian, everybody went, oh yeah, that's a good career move. Nah, something inside you,
Yeah,
what
no,
you know.
I didn't care what anybody said.
Yeah, but see, and that's what, you got to have that dog, man. I think that's the thing that Allen Iverson had. You know, he wasn't trying to change the culture. He wasn't trying to change the landscape. But, you know, I'm this dude from Newport News. That's all, you know, that's all I am.
Challenge that though, but dragging it back to the struggle is real.
Yeah.
AI was being who he is, and you asked him if we could ask him, he said, "I'm just being who I am." We have youth today who are saying that to their demise, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like I'm just being who I am,
Yeah.
as if they can't change to be better. Do we think, as an open conversation question, do we think it's because society has morphed into a different traumatized space? Whereas being who you are is not as beneficial as when AI was saying being who he is.
Let me piggyback on your point.
Mhm.
AI talking about this is who I am, right? And we talk about Grant Hill versus her career. So AI had probably had a higher peak, but I think Grant Hill actually had more sustained success as a player
Yeah.
from start to finish. Because he played up until he was old. Like AI couldn't play in the league
In
after.
college, yeah, he did.
And I think because he didn't change who he was, he wasn't willing to accept a third, fourth, fifth
Yeah.
position. Whereas Grant Hill was willing to
Yeah.
gracefully
Really?
go into another position.
Yeah.
So was it to AI's demise that he did not, just like you're talking about the youth,
Yeah.
As he got older.
was it to his
Yeah.
demise that he didn't change his mindset?
But I think
Um,
is in my difference in that
It's
it was
still
his demise.
right,
But to me, the difference is Allen Iverson knew he had a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew that gift. And we had this conversation before about that gift was open doors for him.
Mhm.
So that's what he was referring to. I'm not going to, because he knew that gift was his. That was his thing. That was his passion. That's what he lived for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the difference is, you know, if you beating your wife and stealing, cheating, it's a difference. To me, it's a cop out to say I'm not going to change who I am. That's
Right.
not holding a gift. That's not doing adding anything. That's just you being stuck in your role. But I do hear that a lot. You know, I work with kids. I hear from
Yeah.
adults. I run fatherhood groups. I hear from I've been successful. Well, define successful. You know, because from where I'm sitting at,
That's the thing.
you know, my lens is a little different.
Yeah, that's the thing. How do we define success for our community, right? The struggle is real, so how do we define the success of saying we've got to move our communities to a better place? You know, we've seen much too many neighborhoods being gentrified and people being displaced. Now with the rent moratorium being lifted, we're seeing evictions happening. So now that jobs are being taken away due to technology, which is not a bad thing, but yet still technology is taking away jobs. We're seeing economic opportunities taken away. And the workforce is now there's no career development. There's jobs being created, but not careers. So we see all this tragic transitioning taking place. And we're still in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We some places going back to wearing masks. You got to prove you're vaccinated. You got to get vaccinated. So that struggle is real. So how do we get our communities moved back to a place of understanding that, you know, we have to get to a place of wellness mentally and socially so that we can get to a place of wellness economically and you know, in our educational spaces. I see it, you know, much too much in our communities, man. And some of the guests that we have on our show, Community Voice, they talk about how, you know, these communities are destitute, and you know, it's kind of like ubiquitous for the crimes that are being happening in our community. So we got to get away from that.
Well, I think it's a couple things. First, I'll start with, and I think my generation had a lot to do with it, because we were the generation, I'll be 60 in November. We were that generation where we got to get out. 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 That's all we heard. Yep, got to get out. You know, there was no, you got to get out and come back. You know, there was no, you got to give back to your community. There was no, so what happened was the folks that got left behind couldn't afford to go.
Right.
You know,
right.
And then you had the folk who were doing all the damage anyway, so they just kind of took over.
Yeah.
And I think people in my generation, a lot of them still don't go back and do stuff. I have friends, but I know a lot who don't. So I think that was the start. I think the other part of it is, you know, you start one person at a time. You know, when we were talking about changing the world for Justin come in. That's why I do what I do. I never walk into a classroom or to a group thinking everybody in that group gonna leave here with the same vision. If I can get one or two people, you know, now it becomes generational.
Yeah.
Because Justin's going to teach his kids. You know, I'm blessed to be sitting in this room, and I've known Justin since what, middle school, high school. You know,
You started cooking him in middle school.
Yeah, it's true.
he always brings that up. He brings it up every time.
So middle school.
You know, and I've watched him become who he is. You know, I got my sons here, man. So you know, we ran the basketball.
Right.
You know, so but that's what you got to do. You gotta plant seeds where you can.
Yeah.
I think the problem with most people is they want to come back and change the hood at one time, and it's not going to happen.
But you plant, we need waterers, man.
You do.
We need waterers.
Well, but you get waters out of this group because if I plant,
No, I'm
like,
agreeing.
They're
I'm
doing
agreeing.
it. They're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
This is their show. They
Right.
came up with this concept.
And I again try to bring you on just to discuss like the resources that are out there for people, because I feel like that's a major issue in our community. Some of us know what the issues are, but not a lot of people know the resources or the opportunities that are out there that can either, you know, help us all or help and uplift the community.